Good morning, and what's mobbing? Man, God bless each and every one of you. So yesterday we had the great opportunity, me and my wife and the hit squad, to head down to Ponca and take part in about an 8 church deep youth group conference where Romans 12:1 and 2 was the topic. And it was a really cool opportunity to speak to the youth, man. And so anyway, I'm gonna share some of what we talked about yesterday, just a micro version of it. But yeah, Romans 12. Let's get into it. Romans 12:1. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. We come through. We come to God through our faith in Christ. And so what does it mean, as it says in this verse, to be holy and pleasing to God? And obviously we know that Jesus is the pattern, to be obedient and to follow the precepts obviously set forth, that God has placed in the Bible before us. We're saved by grace and through our faith in Jesus, which is the only way, which is the only name. When Paul mentioned in view of God's mercy, we have to understand that none of us are worthy. We have always needed something to make up for our sin nature. Back in the day, they used to kill animals and sacrifice them at the altar. And obviously we don't do that anymore. Now our obedience, our bodies, our minds, our time is now the sacrifice. So we know God can use us. It's a matter of if we're going to offer that sacrifice to him, if we're going to return that love to him. And this type of worship is pleasing to God. Romans 12:2 goes on to say, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will. And as we know, this world is all about pleasure century. If it feels good to you, do it. If it's it must be good for you, is the lie, is the rule of thumb in our society. If whatever makes you feel good, it's how it is. And boys will face masculinity issues. Men will be forced to do everything of and in their own power, and the world will ask you to trade in your compassion for overcompensation. You hear a lot of terms of toxic masculinity, all these things are what I would call just what I said, like overcompensation. Like we've lost touch with what a man is supposed to be doing, and how he's supposed to be acting. Girls will face self-esteem issues, and they'll be asked to trade in their virtue for virality. You're either going to chase, in the end, we're all going to end up either chasing some type of status, and that doesn't necessarily add up to money. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of things that you can chase, but we're either going to chase status or you're going to chase something with sustenance. And in the end, the change comes basically when we stop asking, what do I want, but what does God want? What is good and acceptable by his standard? And this is how we can test and approve his will. Like, you can't, if a guy was, and I'm just speaking in terms of relation, because we should have this relationship with God. If a guy like isn't communicating with a girl, if he isn't open, and there's not this dialogue and this time being spent, how could he possibly know what she wants, what her will is, what her desire is? And so it's the same with God. Like, if we're not spending time with him, then there's no way that we can possibly know his will or test that standard, so that we know that we're in good condition and righteous standing. And so this is what a Christian is. These two verses epitomize our duties as men of God and clearly define an expectation. And Paul begins at the top. He's at the top of the verse. He's I urge you. So he's urging us to adopt this way of living. And I pray each of us can, but an urge has more than, I want to reiterate, a urge has more than just, hey, I think you should. Like, he really telling us there's an importance behind what he says from that point down. So I pray that each of us can adopt this desire to want to worship God with our bodies and to fill our minds with his will. And that is the hope. And it's a trip, because the more I dig into this Romans 12, 1 and 2, it kind of like encapsulates the entirety of our expectation. I mean, if we can do what is said in these two verses, a lot of, I don't know the right word, sorry for getting stuck, but a lot of the gospel is packed into this. And if we can learn to live in this manner, we will have love. We will have, all these attributes of Christ, because it's him that we're patterning our life after. It's him that ultimately we will be living in his will, living out the will, the desired effect that he had for our lives. So, but anyway, let me stop. I hope you guys have a blessed day, but I just wanted to share that with you because it was really cool to challenge the youth to confront their way of thinking, to confront what the world is trying to put into their head, and to call them and challenge them to be who they're supposed to be, use their minds, bodies, and souls to propel the gospel, to be, good people under the banner of Christ. So with that said, man, I hope y'all have a blessed day. Don't let this world catch you up. And I'm out of here, man. Love y'all. Stay mobbing.